Imagine being in the midst of chaos, where every corner is a battlefield, and every ruin holds stories of courage and despair. Stalingrad, 1942. The stage of one of the fiercest battles in history, which would change the course of World War II. A battle that, from the very beginning, seemed destined for failure for the German forces. If you want to understand the reasons behind this military disaster and the sacrifices that defined history, like this video and subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss a single detail. It was the summer of 1942. The city of Stalingrad, on the banks of the mighty Volga River, became the target of Operation Blau, part of Hitler's plan to secure control of Eastern Europe. The German army, led by Adolf Hitler, wanted to capture Stalingrad, not only for its strategic value in the Eastern Front, but for the symbolism of its name, a direct moral blow against the Soviet leader, Joseph Stalin. The Battle of Stalingrad would become a true nightmare for the Wehrmacht, an unwinnable battle, and here's why. The German offensive, known as Case Blau, intensified as tanks crossed the Russian steppes. It was a race to conquer the heart of the Soviet Union. The Nazi soldiers, confident in a quick victory, were about to encounter a resistance force they had gravely underestimated. Stalin did not allow civilians to be evacuated from Stalingrad. The Soviet leader believed that the presence of citizens would encourage soldiers to fight with greater determination. Thus, men, women, and children remained in the city. By keeping the population trapped, Stalin created a desperate resistance network that the Germans were not prepared to face. The presence of civilians hindered the German army's advance and forced them to engage in brutal urban warfare, where every corner could hide an ambush. The decision to attack Stalingrad was Adolf Hitler's attempt to reaffirm his power. He wanted the city at any cost. Hitler believed that controlling Stalingrad would open the gates to the entire Caucasus region, rich in oil. However, Hitler's confidence in a quick and decisive victory led him to make fatal errors. On the other side, Stalin was willing to sacrifice everything to hold the city. Thus began one of the cruelest battles in history, a siege that would claim millions of lives. As the German army advanced, destruction spread. Aerial bombings and artillery strikes turned Stalingrad into ruins. But instead of making the invasion easier, these ruins became a deadly maze for the Germans. The offensive encountered unexpected obstacles. The city's streets were narrow, filled with rubble, and perfect for Red Army ambushes. Every destroyed building became a point of resistance. Civilians, trapped in the city by Stalin's order, were forced to adapt. They sheltered in basements, improvised trenches, and often joined soldiers on the front lines. Fear and despair became part of daily life, but so did the unwavering desire to resist. Stalingrad was not just a military target, it was a symbol of courage and resistance. The city was transformed into a fortress. Civilians and soldiers fought together, and every ruin became a trench, every destroyed building a strategic point. The war turned into street battles, hand-to-hand combat. German soldiers faced a type of warfare they had never experienced before. Urban combat, where technological advantages meant little. Soviet snipers, like Vasily Zaitsev, became legendary figures in Stalingrad. Vasily and other sharpshooters, hidden among the rubble, eliminated hundreds of enemy soldiers without them knowing where the shots came from. The city became a true hunting ground, where the German army found itself powerless, trapped in a resistance game where every corner was a trap. As the Germans dug deeper into the city, they had no idea they were about to be surrounded. In November 1942, the Soviet Union launched Operation Uranus, a massive counterattack to encircle the 6th German Army. Stalin's and his general's strategy, including Georgy Zhukov, was clear. Surround and destroy the enemy. The German army found itself trapped, with limited resources, under extreme weather conditions, and with no chance of reinforcement. Survivors' accounts help us understand the horror of Stalingrad. Families who remained in the city faced hunger, cold, and relentless bombings. Olga Ivanova, a survivor, wrote in her diary, "The rubble was our home. There was nowhere to run, only to fight and survive. Every day was a fight for survival, while the Germans, increasingly weakened, fought against an enemy they could never fully defeat. The city itself and its determined population. Then, the Russian winter arrived. Temperatures plummeted, and snow covered the battlefield. What was already a chaotic scenario became even more desperate for the Germans. Hitler's army was unprepared for the intense cold, and supplies began to run out quickly. Soldiers of the 6th German Army, exhausted, ill-equipped, and starving, faced a scenario of total despair. The freezing air cut their faces, hunger corroded their morale, and the absence of any chance of reinforcement meant only one thing: surrender or death. Operation Uranus had closed the encirclement, and the Germans were now isolated from the rest of the world. In February 1943, with no other options, General Friedrich Paulus surrendered. It was the first time a German field marshal had surrendered in combat, something Hitler considered an unacceptable betrayal. Over 90,000 German soldiers became prisoners. The once feared 6th Army was annihilated in the ruins of Stalingrad. The surrender of the 6th Army was a crucial turning point in World War II. The Battle of Stalingrad became a symbol of Nazi Germany's failure in Eastern Europe and marked the beginning of a long retreat that would culminate in the fall of Berlin in 1945. Stalingrad was more than a battle. It was a turning point that changed the direction of World War II. The city, though devastated, became a symbol of resistance. The Soviet victory showed that Nazi Germany was not invincible and served as an inspiration for all the battlefronts that were still to come. After the battle ended, the survivors began to return and rebuild the city. The strength of the Soviet people showed in every brick laid, in every street rebuilt. Stalingrad, now Volgograd, remains a symbol of resilience and courage to the world. Today, Volgograd keeps alive the memory of those who fought and sacrificed. Monuments like Mamayev Kurgan and the Motherland Call statue are symbols of resistance and sacrifice. Every Victory Day celebration reminds the world of the price paid for freedom. Stalingrad was not just a battle, it was a turning point, an example of heroism and sacrifice that echoes to this day. The story of Stalingrad teaches us about the cost of war, about resilience, and about the power of the human spirit. We want to hear from you. What can we learn from the sacrifice of these people? Leave your comment, like this video, and subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the history that shaped the world. Your voice is important to keep alive the memory of those who fought for a better future.